And welcome everyone to another exciting adventure of the energy that surrounds us. I'm your host, Michael, and tonight we have a very special show for you all. And before I get started into that, I would like to take a moment and say Happy Veterans Day to all that have served, are serving, and who plan to serve. Thank you for your service to all of them. And with that, tonight's guest is topics that we have not brought to this channel yet, and I'm so excited to have her on. We have had great conversations, so I'm going to turn it over to my amazing guest, the one, the only extraordinaire, Hope Rising.
Thank you very much, Michael, for having me on this very special day. Do I need to introduce myself, or do we just get
Please do.
into questions?
Uh,
Okay. Um, so, so I am a massage therapist currently, but I've been a professor at different universities. I study environmental design and neurophysiology for my PhD at the University of Oregon. So going back to get a PhD was actually motivated by my own spiritual awakening, the different surreal experiences that happened to me since my near-death experience in New York City in 2007. So I wanted to find ways to really explain what happened, to find ways to really bridge spirituality with science. So what I would say that I have been working on spiritual medicine, which really is interaction between humans and it's their larger environment. So you could talk about environments in terms of the unified field, that's the extent of how much we can push, down to what's within and without the subatomic field within the human body. You could say that's the quantum field. So I really would love to be able to kind of bridge this wide spectrum of different environmental domains and to find ways to really explain the mechanics of how humans interact with this large spectrum of environments in both a tangible way and energetically as well.
That's an amazing gift to give to people because that is a certain aspect that I think a lot of people don't think about, that how interconnected everything is and how medicine really needs to go back to that stage, because I think our old medicine before pharmaceuticals got involved, I feel we're more natural based and more integrated to where now it's all chemical, and that's why people don't react as well.
Mm-hmm. And that observation is right on because a lot of the modern diseases didn't exist. Cancer is actually a pretty new type of disease, and disease actually means not being at ease. So when we're not being at ease with who we truly are, that's when disease will come through the body. So body is actually a communicator of the soul. Whatever happens within the body is a signal, is a message from the soul to really guide us on our ascension journey. It's showing us what we need to work on for our next level of evolution.
That's true. And I also kind of am interested in your work in neuropsychology in the realms of spatial medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you share some of that with us?
Yes. So I am framing spiritual medicine primarily from my own experience. So what I'm describing here is actually tangible. It's something that I've experienced myself, and I cross-reference my experience with what's been discussed in the literature. So basically, after my near-death experience, I went to this golden liquid light city, and I felt like I was being burned in an oven, really hot. And the city was almost like a theater of some sort. I could see the different screens, and different screens were showing snapshots of my life experience for the current life as well as my past lives. Although in that particular experience, there's no such thing as past life. It's almost like each screen is a tunnel, is I would say quantum collapse focus. Like when there's so much stimuli around us, but we can only take in so much. Wherever we focus our gaze is what we're taking into our brain. So in that golden city, it's almost that I could focus here, and I'll see down that tunnel as a screen, and I'll see a timeline that I had lived in. But there's no really time. I mean, there's no past, there's no future. It's like I was looking at infinite number of possibilities in terms of experiences, and I was allowed to choose them, like choose the kinds of experiences I want to have. Um, so it's almost like being in a theater school, like you're being given assignments. Is that okay? Like you're a good character for maybe these A shows, and then you're like working on A shows and really trying to figure out how to embody the character for each show. And then I remember interacting with both humanoids and non-humanoids. So they didn't all look like humans. And I remember different languages, but it's not like I was really listening to languages, but I just remember how the communication required translation. Like it's not like instant. And I remember how I was being asked, like, which one are you going back to? Like, which school, which theater school are you going back to? Um, so it's almost like I was home. I was home, or I was like talking to maybe, a teacher of a theater school, like trying to say, hey, which one are you working on now? Like how was that going? and like, okay, let's discuss your experience of being that character, like how can you improve and what did you get out of that? And then, okay, cut, like go back now, like, so then I went back into my body. And then I woke up with like so much burn marks. My face, my eyes, my ears were burning twice as big. I looked like an elephant. And then my whole body was hurting too. I remember before I took my last breath, I just remember how I was hurting everywhere. And something really heavy was pushing me down, and I could not breathe. I remember I was gasping for air. I had trouble breathing. Um, and then I woke up, I lost 3 days. So I didn't go to the bathroom, I didn't eat. I was just like gone for 3 days. The interesting thing is that it was like February in New York City. So it was really cold. It was snowing outside, but I was hot. I was really hot the whole time. Even after I woke up, I just felt like I was being burned somewhere in the oven. And then I went to see over 30 some doctors, like generalists, specialists, all kinds of specialists, and the cardiologist that I needed triple pes surgeries, and like the gastroenterologist that I had ulcer or colitis, whatever. And endocrinologist said that I had like polycystic ovary syndrome. So they all had like very different diagnoses. The only thing that I was like pretty certain of, because I've seen it a few times. I had seen it a few times from my blood test, that my IgE level was 8 times higher than normal. It showed that I was reacting to something in the air, but again, that IgE level was like way off the chart. So after being given a lot of conventional medicine, I started to have fainting spells, and I fainted in the shower and had like purple stuff coming out my body. So like it was deteriorating. I had to go for alternative medicine. So then I went to see Chinese doctor, Ayurvedic doctor, naturopath. Um, Interestingly, the naturopath said immediately, like, you're not going to be healed unless you know what God is. So then he asked me if I believe in God, and I said, well, I'm a scientist, like I'm all about what's tangible. I was actually an atheist at the time. So he said, well, you have to figure that one out, otherwise you're not going to be healed. And he said, you have to find a female form of divine. So that was like a very specific instruction. I'm literally, quote unquote, saying what he said to me. He said, you have to go find a female form of divine. I was like, oh, okay. Very interesting medicine. So, and then the Chinese doctor, of course, she gave me some acupuncture, but she said something about go find your mother. She said, go find your mother so you can be cured. And I was like, oh, my mother lived in Taiwan, but like, I don't think that's what she meant. I felt like she was referring to some sort of nourishing force. And in Chinese astrology, I'm the element of wood. So the mother for the element of wood is actually the element of water. So, I figured, okay, maybe she was referring to the water element in my constitution. And then I went to see the Ayurvedic doctor. Interestingly, he also said, you need to go find the mother. But this time he didn't say your mother. He said the mother. Go find the mother. And he specifically said India. So that was like, oh, interesting. So I got a little bit of cue in terms of how I should take my own healing path. Because I feel like at the time when I was really lost, I basically go for anything that I could triangulate from. So basically, all three alternative doctors were telling me something about mother, female form of divine, like along that line. And then the India was like something that resonates with what my yoga teacher told me. So basically, I have been doing yoga, Ashtanga yoga, consistently on a daily basis since the new year of 2007. And then I had my near-death experience in February of that year, pretty soon, like a couple months into it. And I just remember how I still went to my yoga class every day, even after my face was swollen and people were laughing at me in the subway station. And then my yoga teacher also, he just looked really happy for me. he looked like I had accomplished something important. I was like, oh my gosh, he seemed to be really proud of me. And then he just said, oh, you should go to India to study with my teacher. So, I was really excited because once again, I got something that I can triangulate from. Like two people are telling me something about India.
Right.
And then a third piece of clues came from my work. So at the time, I was the studio lead designer of the largest architecture firm's New York City office. And I actually was just about to go to India for business. And I got my first, Indian visa ever. And actually the morning when I was having the near-death experience was when I was about to go to the airport for my business trip to India. So I was like, oh, okay. So there's this thing about India. So there you go. I have to go to India to find some sort of mother, female form of divine. So I was like, there we go. Like I drained all my savings, and I got worse with the Western medicine. So I got to just take my own healing path. So basically, I left with a backpack and a pair of sandals, and my face was still swollen and burning and big, distorted. So I just went to India. Um, and what was really interesting was that I show up at the yoga shala where my teacher used to study. That was the Patapi Joyce's Ashtanga Yoga Institute. He's the founder of the yoga, and he was there, and his grandson, who was his successor, was also there. And I just remember how I show up at the shala, and they both had their mouths wide open, and they just look up above my crown into the sky. They both had their mouths so open. I was like, oh, what is there? I was like, okay, what exactly are they looking at? Because they look at me like that for about maybe, I would say, 60 seconds. And that's pretty significant because they first look up and then they look at each other. So I was like, oh, all right, there's something coming out of my head. And it goes all the way up like that, like I was just like, okay, that's another piece of clue. Like I have to document that. And then I went to the yoga philosophy class, and then the yoga philosophy teacher was doing the same thing. He also stared at the top, above here, and then he looked up like that. He said, "Why are you here?" And he said, "You don't have to come to the class. Here's a book that you can read." so, so I just got the book, went home, and the book is about the subtle body anatomy. It's actually Vedantic, and it cross references the subtle body anatomy with neurophysiology. So right there I was like, oh, I'm supposed to heal myself again. Heal myself was reading this book, and I was like, how am I gonna find the mother and the female form of divine from studying subtle body, anatomy and neurophysiology? So I was reading all the Sanskrit characters. I took Sanskrit class and try to read as much as I can, but basically I feel like each letter, each character was like a light code, or something, like a yantra, I would say some sort of activation code. Even though I wasn't able to rationally translate every single character, but I remember reading the Sanskrit characters and feeling the projection of energy into my body. And at the same time, I was taking a lot of Indian music classes, studying raga, Indian raga. So Indian ragas actually correspond to the 12 time zones of the day. And later on, I improvised with top Indian musicians, and we created 12 ragas out of our improvisations that basically resonate at 12 different frequencies for activating the 12 meridian lines. And then I remember how after each improvisation, my body felt lighter. There's an aspect of the body that responded to the music itself, and also the process of creating music. But still, I still had not met the female form of divine or the mother. But one time I went to a breakfast place, and people started talking about the mother. I was like, oh, the mother. I was like, oh, is the mother in India? They're like, yeah. So then I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go meet the mother. So they were talking about two different mothers, the Amachi in Kerala, and also the mother in Oroville. Um, and somehow the mother in Oroville like gave me, I felt like when they mentioned that mother in Oroville, it just kind of like there's like I got pushed, like I felt my body reacted, even though I couldn't quite understand why my body had a reaction. So I just used that as a way of deciding, okay, am I going to Kerala or am I going to Oroville? So I was like, oh, my body like somehow really like reacted to the mother in Oroville. So I decided to go to Oroville. And the interesting thing is that like that same day, I walked outside of where the table was, where I met all the people talking about the mother. And I met a guy from Vienna, Austria, and he said he's going to Oroville. So that's another confirmation. So I was like, okay, Oroville, all right. So I'm going to Oroville. So I just went to return the book back to my yoga philosophy teacher. I was going to tell him that I was going to Oroville. And it's funny that the moment I show up with the book, I was by the door. He was writing something on the blackboard, and he wrote Divine Mother. And I was like, oh, the mother. And then after the class, I gave him the book back, and I said, oh, I'm going to Oroville. And then he said, oh, I know. So that's like another confirmation. So I was always looking the convergence of three confirmations to like know if I'm on the right path when it comes to healing myself. So
Synchronicity.
exactly. So once I got to Oroville, it was like being in a movie. The synchronicity was constant. And I think what was the most interesting was that I experienced what's called the quantum entanglement. Because it happened to me over and over and over and over, and I had to like find ways to really explain it. What happened was that I felt this tingling sensation, goosebumps from head to toes, whenever I was in the presence of some people. I would say about 30% of the people there gave me that goosebumps without even talking to them. Let's just say I'm in a grocery store and I was just like waiting. Somehow, some people gave me goosebumps just by being near them, and others didn't give me any goosebumps. So I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. But what was really interesting was that we were staying at a hotel ran by a Dutch couple, and one of my sandals was stolen. I don't know if one of the dogs took it, and the couple gave me a new pair of sandals. I was like, oh, great. So then I show up at the center of Oroville. It's called the Matra Mandir. Interestingly, it's a French word that refers to the manifestation of the Divine Mother. I was like, oh, the mother. Yeah, I have to go see the mother, the manifestation of the Divine Mother. So I had a appointment with the Matrimandir committee, the head of the committee. And, I was a licensed landscape architect at the time. And what was really interesting was that he was a civil engineer, and I actually studied civil engineering before as well. And then the architect Ho Jeong-jae, who designed this whole city to look like a galaxy. He just passed away, like right before I got there. So I got to meet his wife. But the interesting thing is that the moment I encountered Matrimandir and I saw this galactic form of city, I was like, oh my gosh, like that looks like the golden liquid light city, that I went to like during my near-death experience. Super interesting. So I was like, oh my gosh, I had the galaxy form and like this golden sphere. And the crazy thing is that there's a double helix shaped kind of stairways that take you up to the top of the golden sphere. And the golden sphere looks like the galactic sun. has a lot of the golden disc, and then there's like 12 petals that surround the golden sphere, and each petal has a meditation chamber, and this chamber has different light, color light coming out. So 12 different colors coming back to the white light. And then the 12 petal gardens, they represent 12 states of consciousness. So then the 12 ragas that I co-created with Indian musicians actually were meant to be the frequency that manifests into the garden, into each garden, to like really capture the state of consciousness as a frequency. And what was fascinating was that when I met the head of the Matra Mandir committee, he was wearing the exact same sandals that I was wearing. Really weird. And then he just said, "Oh, my son just went to college. I have a vacant bedroom upstairs. You can come and stay there if you want to." So then I stay upstairs, and there's like 2 terraces right next to the room, and I could see the terraces. And whenever I was in the room, there's always 2 peacocks there. One was turning clockwise, the other one was turning counterclockwise, and they're always there with their feathers wide open. Whenever I was in the room, I was like, "Oh my gosh, am I hallucinating?" So one time I ran downstairs. I said, "I'm going to see if they're there," when I was looking at them from outside. And it's weird that they disappear, but I saw the peacock feather like stuck into my motorbike. Man, like a real long peacock feather. I was like, "Oh yeah, they were there." So there were just pairs of animals that just kept showing up. Like, for example, when I was going to yoga classes in the morning, there would be a white dog and a black dog. And then one will be in front of me, the other one will be behind me, and then they would just be like taking me to the yoga class. And then after my yoga class, they'll come out of nowhere, and then they were like walking me back. Or like 2 birds, and even twins. Then a friend of mine from Switzerland, and then her sister from Holland said, "Oh, you should go to the mother's birthday ceremony." I was like, "Oh, sure. I want to know everything about the mother." So the mother is actually a French woman called Mira Alfassa, who was the spiritual partner of Sri Aurobindo, and he was the founder of Integra Yoga. So Mira Alfassa was the founder of Auroville. So my friend Aurora said, "Oh, you should go to the mother's room and see what it's like, and go to her ashram." And I was really excited. So she said, "Oh, I got 2 German friends that can go with you." And it turned out that these 2 German guys, they're twins. So again, you got a pair of something. And then the guy that I met from Vienna, his name is Marcus. And then when we went to Oroville, I met another guy from Germany, and his name is Marcus too. So there's like constantly a pair of something. Wherever I went, it was like that. So then when I went to the ashram, there's like these security gates that will scan your bags and make sure you didn't bring any weapons or anything dangerous. So Aurora, she packed lunch and a water bottle into our bags, and somehow the alarm got triggered when one of them went in front of me, the other one went behind me, but somehow I didn't trigger the alarm. Like somehow it was the metal bottle inside of the bag that triggered the alarm. So there's something about my energy field that allows the alarm to not detect the presence of the metal bottle. So I was like documenting that. I was like, okay, there's another weird phenomenon. I was like, well, I have to figure out why that is. And then when I walked in there's all these Indian women that started kissing my hand. And then they said, "Oh, welcome home." I was like, "Oh, okay, this is home." And I was walking up to the mother's room. Actually, she passed away in 1973, and I was born in 1974. So I was walking up the stairs, and I felt like each step was like 10 years or like 20 years. I feel like I'm like walking back in time. And then I walked into the bedroom. I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I would have set up my bedroom. That was really dark color wood, and then there's a collection of small animals. I was like, oh, like everything was white. It's either white linens or dark wood for closet doors and flooring. I was like, oh my gosh, like this feels like my room. Like I would have like basically arranged my room this way. Um, so then I just started to feel like, oh my gosh, what's my relationship to the mother? Because I just feel like I had known her so well. And then I met this woman from Vienna. She was 100 years old. She saw me. She's like, turn around and look at yourself. Remember who you are. And so I turned around. I saw a portrait of the mother. So then she basically told me that that's me. She said, remember who you are. Remember who you are. And I once again, whenever I got a little cue, I will consider that okay, a piece of evidence to collect, and then I'm going to see if I can triangulate that with something else. And then my yoga teacher started asking me if I had orthodontics done, and I did. I did orthodontics like 3 times. So the mother had a lot of teeth. I used to have a lot of big teeth as well. So I was like, oh yeah, my mouth probably would have looked like hers if I didn't do any orthodontics. And then the engineer from Metro Mandir just said, oh, you're like the baby mother. So I said, okay, so what's my relationship to the mother then? And then I started to think that, wow, so if a soul incarnates into a body about 44 days after, the fetus already developed, then I counted the days. I was like, well, that seems about right. So like, I could have been her reincarnation. So I was counting the days and thinking, okay, if I really count when she passed away, when I was born, and all that, it seems to fit. So then I was like, okay, all these people that gave me goosebumps from head to toes, maybe I have met them as the mother. So there is quantum entanglement that you carry from one lifetime to another. So I said, oh yeah, it looks like they were older, much older than the other ones. That didn't give me any goosebumps. But then I met young, pretty young girls. I was like, okay, so they couldn't have met the mother. But they told me, oh, wow, they were babies when the mother, I think the year before the mother passed away. So the mother was holding them on her laps before she passed away. So the idea of a quantum entanglement, something that you carry beyond one lifetime, is something that I experience over and over. And I think when it comes to spatial medicine, there are different portals on Earth that serve as the activation point of different DNA strains. So we all have dormant DNAs that will turn off through epigenetic changes. And so whenever there's trauma in the lineage of your ancestry, it can turn off epigenetics, which are your genetic expression. So these are like buttons on your TV that switch on and off your TV. So if your TV is your genes, epigenetics will switch it on and off. And they get passed down through generations. So basically, when I was in India, my face stopped being swollen, and I was doing, of course, I was like fasting, doing yoga, pranayama, meditation, and I started to smell all the medicine coming out of my sweat. So when I went back to New York City to see my doctor, he was just shocked. He was at, oh, your biological age was at 18. I was 33 at the time. And he was like, "You're almost like an Olympic athlete in terms of like what I can get out of your blood test." He was like, "What did you do?" So I think it was not just the diet change. It was not just mindfulness activities that I was doing, but it was also going to a particular portal where one of my DNA strands was activated. And I think this has to do with the 5 different harmonic universes that we traverse through on our ascension journey. So my NDE basically was just the beginning. And the first portal that I went to was where my IC sunline was. So the IC sunline basically is a place where you can find your immediate past life, like where you can actually experience your immediate past life and be reminded of what it was all about, like through interaction with the places and the people there. Because I remember hearing the Indian music and almost crying nonstop, and everything just felt so familiar, so home-like, and then everybody just felt so familiar. So it was a very interesting place where I was reminded of one of the lifetimes that I had lived. And the reason I mention this is because to be able to go beyond our first 2 harmonic universes, we have to basically remember all the lifetimes. And I think the most immediate one is the most powerful one, because the most immediate lifetime we had lived oftentimes says a lot about our soul mission or current life purpose, because a lot of people are here to pick up what they left at. Like there were things that they were supposed to finish up, but they didn't finish up, that they're coming back to continue with the same kind of work. And what was interesting was that the mother actually started this whole Matrimondial garden idea with the French architect, and then she passed away. So nobody really knew how to design the gardens. And for some random reason, I became a licensed landscape architect before I encountered the place. So there's that weird continuation of like what you didn't get finished in your immediate lifetime. So if you were to like learn about all your lifetimes, the most potent and significant one to learn about is the last one you had. So that was just a little piece of basically how I heal myself by realizing who I was and the mission that I was working on, and how I'm going to continue with that mission, with my current identity. And then when I was in India, I then started to experience what's called a superposition. It's a quantum mechanics term. So you can also say that's non-locality. So basically, I started to be able to see people dying. Like I dream about 2 people dying of heart attacks, and then I also saw Jesus' face for the first time. And I wasn't a Christian. I didn't know if that was Jesus or not. I mean, I saw Jesus' picture a few times, but I wasn't a Christian at the time. So I woke up in the morning, and it turned out that one of the men that was dying was the guy selling coconuts in front of my yoga shala. I walked out. I was living across from the shala. I walked out of my place, and I saw his picture, and I saw flowers. So then he passed away of heart attack, like exactly when I dream of what was happening. And then the other guy who died of heart attack was my Bansuri flute teacher's brother-in-law. He also died of heart attack. When I went to the flute lessons, my teacher told me that. So I was like, oh my gosh, like if these 2 incidents were real, then I really saw Jesus, right? So that was I got to confirm if that was Jesus, so then I went to I was like, oh, show me universe, show me show me who that was. The interesting thing about quantum mechanics is that it's like a call and response. So whenever you have a request, the quantum field is like the genie. The genie is gonna send you what you asked for. So I was like, oh, confirm who that person was. So then I went to the grocery store, and there's like a little stand with postcards. And so I was standing in line, and boom, like one postcard just fell in front of me. I was like, oh, what's that? And I picked it up. The postcard shows Jesus, but then I kind of tilted a little bit. It shows Mary Magdalene. Like they were wearing like the same outfit, almost looked the same, but when I like tilted a little bit, it shows a different face. Um, and then I read, oh, Jesus and Mary Magdalene. So I was like, oh my gosh, another goddess, like another female form of divine. I was like, did I actually saw Jesus or Mary Magdalene? So then I remember Jesus told me to go to Glastonbury, England, at the sunrise of fall equinox in 2008. So because these two men really died of heart attacks, right? So I know like what I received was significant, was a non-local transmission of like reality. So I was like, okay, I have to go. So then I just bought a ticket, and I went to London, and it was again like a movie, like very choreographed, extremely choreographed. Like I got out of the airport, there was a bus that was going to Glastonbury. I think it took like hours to get there. And I got on the bus. I was like, oh, wow. Where did all these girls come from? Like everybody in the bus was some sort of girl from some country. So then I heard, oh, there's a goddess ceremony in Glastonbury the next day. I was like, oh yeah, like oh, perfect timing. So then another female form of divine. So I was like, oh, this is like critical to my healing. So then I went there, and I got off the bus. It was 11 p.m. I was like, now what? Like, where would I go? And then a hostel door just opened, and this guy was sweeping the floor. He just said, oh, you must be the one claiming the last bed. And I was like, oh, wonderful. So then like there's a dorm room with 12 beds, and everything was taken. So somehow I got a bed for free. And then the next morning I was like, oh, Jesus said I have to get up to the Glastonbury tour before sunrise. I got to go in the dark. So then I got out. I was like, oh gosh, how am I get up there in the dark? And then there was a guy from Peru. He said Jesus told him to go there to take somebody up to the Glastonbury tour, like to see the sunrise on the fall equinox. So he came from there specifically to find this person. So I was like, okay, that must be me then. So then he took me up because he scoped out the route to get up the day before. So he did it when there's still light out. So he knew exactly how to go up. So he took me up there, and Jesus said I will like meet someone. So I was like, oh my gosh, who am I gonna meet? I hope I will not be kidnapped, like. So I was just like concerned about who was meeting me because everything turned out to be real. So I went hiding in the bushes, and I asked this Peruvian. He's actually a mountain guy, a Quechua. I asked him to wait there, and I was gonna just go hide. And so then there was a Belgian spiritual teacher that hitchhiked there, and he showed up, and he said he needed to talk to me. He's got some information for me. He said some Swami told him to go there to meet me. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, it's real. So then I came out, and he started crying nonstop. And I was like, oh, wow, like what is going on? And then he opened his bag, and he gave me a vanilla folder. And the vanilla folder has pages printed out from the internet that talked about how the heart chakra of the earth was open. in 2008, and it talked about like Guanyin and the Kumaras from Venus, Sana Kumaras, and the interesting thing is that I think the same night when I saw Jesus and the two men dying of heart attacks, I actually saw the Earth. I saw the Earth like getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it's almost like I just crushed into it. So it's almost like I was like an alien or something like that. So I was like, oh, like maybe there's something about Venus that I needed to investigate. But then this spiritual teacher from Belgium said I had to go to the Divine Child's Mound. He said he was there last night. He said I need to go to the Divine Child's Mound. So then I didn't know how to go. It was not anywhere in my Lonely Planet guide. So I went back to the hostel. I was in the cafeteria, and a woman just patted on my shoulder. She showed me a map. It says Divine Child's Mound. And then she said, do you know how to go there? And I said, no, but I want to go too. And then she said, oh, let's just go to the bus station and ask the driver. So then we went to the bus station, and the driver said, oh, I can drop you somewhere close. And then we got drop off. And two guys came over, and they were just like, oh, are you guys looking for the Divine Child's Mound? So it was all like time. It was all almost like we were on an organized tour, and like everything was all booked and arranged, and so then we were like, oh yeah, we're looking for the Divine Child's Mound. And then they took us to like a prairie, and the prairie didn't have any mound. I was like, oh, it looks pretty flat. Where's the mound? And then this lady said, oh, it's right here, right here, right here, right here. And then she just said, open the grass, and there's an itty bitty mound, but it has a lot of offerings, flowers, and like handwritten notes. You could see how it's a sacred site. And her name is Odo now, and she's a Scottish spiritual teacher. And she said something about how she's Mother Mary, and she came here specifically to meet with me because all the ley lines there cross, but there are only two ley lines that don't cross there, and those are the ley lines of Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene. So she said she came just so the two lines can cross. And then she said this is an initiation. And she specifically mentioned Bridget. Bridget is the Irish goddess, tri-flame goddess. And she said something about how I have to be careful with Bridget's energy to not become too much of a soldier, to always look for people's essence. And she said that's how Jesus was able to heal people, to always look for people's divine essence. And she also mentioned something about to not become too sacrificial, to not become too selfless and sacrificial like Jesus, and how this whole thing is all about co-creation, co-creating. So I was like, oh my gosh, what is all this? Is she really Mother Mary? And she knew everything about my life, like everything that I never told anybody about. And I think what's the most significant was that she appeared whenever I needed help. Because at the time she was talking to me, she said, oh, go to the Isle of Women up north in Scotland. So I said, okay. So I left Glastonbury. I went further north, and I was taking a ferry to Isle of Women. And then I saw Jesus in the ferry, in the dining hall, sitting across from me. He wrote me a poem and asked me to make the poem into a song, which I did later on. It's called My Dream, because the title of his poem was called My Dream. So he was basically saying that I am his dream, and that the poem says, behind my eyes, you're seeing light of all light. Beyond my ears, you're hearing voice of all voices. Beneath my skin, you're feeling words of all words. And within my breath, you're living life of all life. So I think he's implying that he's outside of me and I was behind him, of something like that. And then I went up to Finhorn, and I was working in the permaculture garden there. And I came back down to London and I stayed at a hostel. The room was packed with homeless guys. It was really stinky. So I asked to be put in a different room. But the front desk just said, oh, we don't have anything else left. It was 11 p.m. And Mother Mary showed up right there. I was like, oh, how did you know that I came back to London? How did you know that I was here? And she said, oh, I just had a feeling that you had trouble with your lodging. So I wanted to come and help. And then she just talked to the front desk and said, well, you got that room right there. There's 2 beds in there. You should let her have that room. And then the front desk person was just like really scared. She said, how did you know? And she said, just go open that door. We'll see if it's true or not. And then there's really 2 beds in there. She just told me to not let anybody into that room. Otherwise, a girl from Canada is going to walk in at 2 a.m. She said, lock the door. I did not listen to her. And there was indeed a girl from Canada checking in at 2 a.m. So it's almost like she's the director of whatever is happening. Like she's able to have this global view of like she's like, basically I'm on stage. She's like this extra character that can jump on stage like randomly whenever there's a need for assistance. So then the next morning, at the time, I had to go to the U.S. Embassy to notarize paperwork. I had to have a power of attorney signed. It was like an improvisation. I didn't have time before my flight, so I really was cramming it in. I was bumbling around with my luggage, and then she showed up like in the middle of nowhere on the sidewalk, and she's like, give me your luggage and I wait for you at the Starbucks by the embassy. I was like, how did you know that I'm struggling with my luggage? She said, oh, you don't have enough time, just go. And then she really picked me up with my luggage like a cat, and then we went to the airport. And amazingly, we went all the way to the gate because they already shut the gate. But nobody saw her. Nobody checked her passport. Nobody checked her boarding pass, nothing. So she talked to the lady at the gate and said, please, this is my daughter's first time traveling abroad. You have to let her get on. Please, please open the gate. And she said, well, I can't because no more seat left. Then Mother Mary said, well, please take a closer look at your computer. There's still an exit row seat left. And somehow she looked at the computer. She said, oh my gosh, how did you know? Like somehow a pilot did not board the flight. So then there was a seat for me, and they opened the gate so I could get on. So I was just like really shocked. And I said, well, who are you? Like people can't necessarily see you unless you need to talk to them. I was like, are you an angel? And she said, yes, I am an angel. So I was like, oh my gosh. And it was like, then why is it that I can see you all the time? And then she said, well, only children can see me. And to me, you're always a child. It was like this whole experience of like encountering a female form of divine and a mother figure, like exactly like the kind of healing experience that I was prescribed with. So like when you send your intention out there, the quantum field, the unified field sent you exactly what you asked for. Is this call and response again? So then it turned out that Glastonbury is a very powerful stargate that was activating another DNA strand of mine that was dormant. Because after I came back from Glastonbury, I noticed like shift in who I was. It's almost like I took on a different personality, and like my health was also improving drastically after I met with her. So I had like so many more experiences with encountering supernatural beings. But what I want to say is that Glastonbury is where my Neptune descendant line goes through. So if you go to a Neptune descendant line place based on your astrocartography map, you're likely to be able to encounter your higher selves face to face. So basically at that time, by encountering with her, another female form of divine, allows me to be connected back with my oversoul family members. So later on, I discovered that Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Jesus, they're all my oversoul family members. So, once I've traversed beyond knowing all my timelines, knowing all these different characters that I had to play as a particular soul frequency and the soul mission, then the next step is to get like really specific guidance and interaction with my oversoul family members. So there's another level of remembrance that happened along with the DNA activation. And then after that, it's more challenging because then I got into the next harmonic universe, and that experience was traumatic. Basically, I was invited to go to a conference in China, and I went there and presented, and the conference host then said, "Oh, I want to invite you over for dinner. I'm like the person that started this farmers university. I've been training rural women to grow their own food, to become self-sufficient economically, while at the same time nurturing Mother Earth and producing abundance through food production." So she wanted me to see the project. So she said her son will come and pick me up. Um, so then when I was in the car driving to her place, it started pouring like crazy, torrential downpour. And then once I got to her place, she said, "Oh my gosh, my child had come home." So once again, another female mother figure. She said, "Oh, my child had come home." I was like, "Oh wow, like I'm really on my self-healing journey." And then she said she's a reincarnation of Guan Yin. And she said something about how I brought the rain. Like they had drought for 6 months and their reservoir was running out of water. All their crops were dying. And she said, "Oh, just in time." And then she told me something about how people always said her successors are going to be her son. She said, "No, it's actually going to be a woman." And she said something about how they were looking at the attendee list for the conference, and then they had a spiritual advisor that pointed at my name and said that that's it. Because my Chinese name actually sounds like a male name, but somehow the spiritual advisor pointed out this name and said that's it, but it's a woman. And so then that night I was staying upstairs. There was a beam of light. There was a beam of light that was at this big. It was very bright, very white, and it just like came through the window. And there was a bottle of water sitting on the table in front of my bed. So that beam of light came in through the window, and it just like hit the bottle of water. It became like this sphere of light, a light bulb. And at the same time, I heard like this really loud sound. It's almost like an airplane outside, like some sort of engine or like pretty loud sound. And this ball of light just became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I became like within it. And then I just set up, from my bed, and I was frozen. Like I could not move. Like all I could do was I just sit there and watch the whole thing. And then after that encounter, there was a woman from Shanghai. She came to pick me up to go down to Shanghai for the World Expo in 2010. And she just kept saying something about how I'm an alien, and if I didn't get it done, I won't get to go home. And, that kind of advice, which was a little bit scary at the time. Like, oh, go home. I won't get to go home. And then pretty soon after that, I was going to Amazon for Christmas. It was in 2012, before the end of 2012. I was going to go there for Christmas, and my flight from Miami got delayed, so I didn't make my connecting flight to Amazon. Then I was told that, okay, I got to pay $1,000 to book another flight. Then a Portuguese businessman came over and he translated for me. He said, no, you don't want to pay another $1,000. It's not worth it. You go to Amazon for next time. So then he booked a ticket for me to, he booked a taxi for me and a hotel room in Abu Dhabi, about a couple hours away. He said, oh, go to Abu Dhabi. And then so then I went there and I walked into the hotel and people asked me like, who booked your room? I said, I don't know, somebody at the airport. Then they were like, oh, you know, that shower was leaking and we were fully booked. We kept that room because the shower was not working. And the moment the guy called them, they told the man that the shower wasn't working, but the guy said, oh, go check on it, it's working now. Like somehow I got the room simply because the shower wasn't working and all of a sudden it was working. And then everybody was like wearing white collar clothes. I was like, oh wow, like everybody is in white. And so then I bought some white clothes, and the next day I just got pushed into John of God's church. Like John of God was like this world famous healer. Like many people from around the world went to see him if they had illnesses that didn't have cure elsewhere. They just went there. Like supposedly when you're like in Abu Dhabi, your symptom or your illness goes away. Like for some people, they don't even have to go see him. So I got pushed into his church, and I saw him. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the Portuguese man at the airport. I was like, well, John of God was the one that got me here. But then people told me that no, he was here at the church. I mean, I'm working with people when you were at the airport. So obviously he he was able to be at two places at the same time, bilocated. Um, so then I got pushed into a spiritual surgery room, and immediately I started crying nonstop. And then I saw Jesus, and this time Jesus was like a real body. And then he just hugged me and he said, I'm never going to leave you again. And then after that, I had a nightmare for like 7 nights in a row. And every single night, I dream of robots or like Terminator looking aliens, or I don't know if it's actually creatures on Earth, like capturing me. I was escaping, they were looking for me, and I always got captured. And I was like trapped and like basically tied up. Like every day I try to run and hide, but I always got captured. So it was like the same nightmare happened over and over, over and over. Until the 7th night, they were these beings of light that show up, and they got these bullets of light, and then they were using those bullets of light to attack all these machine-looking aliens or robots on Earth. So when I got trapped, like they came and intervened and they set me free, and they just asked me to keep running and never look back. So on the 7th night, even though I had the same nightmare, I got free from that situation. And then I woke up, I saw like hieroglyphs I projected onto the walls of my hotel room. Later on, I was told that that's some sort of light code for DNA activation. And like it looks the same as the ones that I saw in the pyramids at Giza in 2000 when I went there. So then I was going home, and on my way to the airport, the taxi driver said, oh, you should go check out the Temple of Goodwill since you got a few hours left before your flight. So then he dropped me there, and it looks like a pyramid, like a contemporary pyramid. So I walked into it, and I stumbled across a room in the basement, and I opened the door, and I saw these hieroglyphs. I was like, oh, interesting. So then he took me back to the airport. The weirdest thing is that nobody could see me. I was like wondering why they all pushed their luggage towards me. Like they were all like like running into me as if I didn't exist. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? Like they were all like pushing their stuff into me, like coming my way. And I got to like, it was just like really weird. It's like they totally could not see me. And all of a sudden I got a drop of water like on my head. I think something was dripping from the ceiling. And then the moment I got drip here, like boom, like they could see me. It was really interesting. It reminded me of that book or movie called Celestine Prophecy, where the Peruvian soldiers were like trying to hunt this guy down, and then he was there meditating with a little girl. And then I think when their heart chakras were open, like there's a phase cancellation. So this is quantum mechanics. When two electromagnetic fields cancel each other out, so there is scalar wave, which creates this kind of quantum vacuum. So it would dissolve like whatever is in the 3D time and space continuum. So that's exactly like what happened, when they disappear. So I was like, oh wow, like what is it that actually allow me to have a similar experience? So I think it says something about meeting Jesus, because when Jesus hugged me, he said, I'm never going to leave you again. So again, two electromagnetic fields kind of like meeting, which creates a phase cancellation and a scalar wave, some sort of quantum vacuum that allows you to penetrate the veil, escape the three-dimensional time and space continuum. So then what I actually experienced was the harmonic universe from dimension 9 to 12. So dimension 9 is the Andromeda galaxy, and Andromeda galaxy actually has kind of a geographical reference on Earth. So anything in Asia, Buddhism, Guanyin. So Andromeda galaxy is like a sister galaxy or Milky Way galaxy. So my encounter there with Guanyin basically is like connected with my activation of my ninth dimension. And then as I ascended to the 10th dimension and the 11th dimension, I remember my ex used to say that I woke up screaming in the middle of the night. I'd kick like out of the bed. It's almost like I was fighting during sleep. I was like kicking and falling out of my bed, like shooting into the air, and then like landing over the place, and then like screaming, like waking up. So I don't know if I actually had an alien encounter when the beam of light came in, if I was captured, if the Terminator looking beings actually captured me that night when the beam of light came in and it became a sphere of light that enveloped me. And I think Jesus somehow got me out of that. So basically, there's a correspondence of what happened at the 11th dimension. So the 11th dimension is when we have to somehow fight a battle of going beyond, because there are beings at that dimension that have been harvesting humans' energy as batteries, and they do not want humans to go beyond the 11th dimension, because then they wouldn't be able to use them as batteries anymore. But the 12th dimension is the Christ, our inner crystal self, the Christ consciousness. So my reunion with Jesus, his embrace, in some ways, is that merging with the inner crystal that really allowed me to escape the battle at the 11th dimension. So I basically had a breakthrough. And I think me disappearing from matter is also another indication of going beyond the 9th to the 12th dimension. That's the fourth harmonic universe, because when I go to the next one, that's the pre-matter dimensions from the 13th to the 15th. So I was able to get beyond matter and disappear after my reunion with my inner crystal, with Jesus, the Christ consciousness. So I guess that's another. So the Stargate in Beijing, where I got captured, interestingly, is where my IC Mars line goes through. And then my Chiron is actually in the house, in the 12th house, governed by Aries. So Mars is the planet for Aries. So it's like I have a spiritual wounding. I have a wounding event that is beyond the human experience. So my encounter with what's beyond the human experience created some sort of wounding experience in the spiritual realm. And so then interestingly, that portal in Beijing is also where I have the Neptune descendant line. So the Neptune descendant line actually went all the way from Glastonbury to Beijing, like it curves around. So the Neptune descendant line is not always good for you, because you could meet, because at the same time when I met Mother Mary, my Venus ascendant line goes through there. So that is where I'm reborn. So I'm reborn as a divine child, because I am actually a Taurus ascendant. So where I was reborn through encountering Mother Mary as a oversoul family members. But then my encountering with Guan Yin and other beings that were capturing me, again, it's an encounter with supernatural beings. It's a Neptune descendant line, but it's also where my IC Mars line is. So that's where the wounding takes place. So we have to be careful to not just go to any Neptune descendant line, because there are certain ones that will open you up for certain experiences that will ultimately harm you spiritually or energetically, that cannot be like identified in the material world. So that's what happened to me. But it's a process of actually going through the 11th dimension to be able to get beyond the fourth harmonic universe, go into the pre-matter harmonic universe. That's where there's no polarity, there's no light or dark, there's no right or wrong, there's no female or male. So that's when everything is one. And that's basically the realm of Rishi self. It could be different entities for different people, but for me, it was really experiencing the Holy Spirit, like really tangibly. So once I get beyond the experience of being embraced by Jesus, I actually got to see Jesus for 3 days. Like as humans. So I feel like during the ascension journey, I was raising my vibration through the different harmonic universes so that I could then encounter my oversoul family members, in this case Jesus, more tangibly. Like each time I was able to have more tangible interaction with him. So like basically I, for different reasons, I was like, this is like another long story, but I was like taken to Southern Illinois because that's another stargate for me. And that's exactly where I saw Jesus for 3 days, like as a human. And he told me that he's confined to just the Shawnee National Forest, that's north of the confluence of Ohio, Mississippi River. He said he cannot cross the river for spiritual reasons. And so that's a very, very potent portal that allows us to penetrate the veil, because I was able to interact with him just like a human for 3 days. And that is where the solar eclipse in 2027 from Oregon to North Carolina actually had the longest totality, and the solar eclipse in 2024 went from Texas to New York with the longest totality. So as above, so below. It's not just the axis mundi in the sky; it's also an axis mundi on the ground. Because the glacier used to come all the way just north of it, and the Gulf used to go all the way just south of it. Ohio drains into the Mississippi River. And continental America, south of that point, basically used to be the Gulf. And it then the land was created from the sediment that was gouged out of the Garden of the Gods in the Shawnee National Forest by the rivers, particularly the Ohio Mississippi River. So it was a very strong portal. And the interesting thing is that I had like right shoulder pain ever since I got captured in Beijing, by the beam of light and the sphere of light. I had right shoulder pain. And we can map out, the body is the communicator of our soul, like our ascension journey. It allows us to know where we are and where the wounding took place. So what happened was that the right shoulder represents the Andromeda galaxy. So if you map it geographically, that's where the line goes through for me. For Mars, I see Mars line. So when I went to Shawnee National Forest, where I met Jesus for 3 days, the moment he saw me, he immediately touched the place where I had my shoulder pain. It was like, like how would he know that that's where I needed help? So he touched me there, and my pain went away. But what's really fascinating is that after I met him, every time I feel my right shoulder pain, I just went back there. And the moment I went back there, my whole body would just pop open. I feel more space between the vertebrae, and then my shoulder pain will like completely go away. And then later on, when I study astrocartography, I noticed how aspects play a huge role in my case. So basically, Shawnee National Forest is where my Mars line goes through with 120 and 150 degrees. So it's a harmonic aspect. It just means that my wounding from my interaction with Andromeda Galaxy, where I got the Chiron planet, is corrected. So any distortion in my template basically gets corrected if I go to the same planet line that has the harmonic aspect, like 120 degree or 150 degrees. So I'm bringing up all these life stories just to illustrate how these stargates are super powerful in terms of facilitating our ascension journeys and correcting any distortions in our template, activating the DNA. And I tried to study neurophysiology and quantum mechanics and DNA activation to really find an explanation for it. So what really unifies all these experiences basically is the way the scalar waves are standing waves of phase cancellations of two electromagnetic fields. So we can look at it in microcosmic way by looking at the chakras, our energy centers. So each energy centers have two vortices, two electromagnetic fields that meet. One is for opening it up, the other one is for closing it up. So our body is like a bunch of subatomic vibrational energy fields that can be synchronized into coherent state. They can self-organize into larger scale units. So from there, we have cells, we have tissues, and subtle energy systems. We have these plexus that are physical structures of our chakras, our energy centers. There are also intersections of our meridian lines. So we have the subtle energy anatomy of meridian lines of chakras, but we also have, we have the antiparticle. We also have their physical counterpart, the particle aspect. But then when we're looking at the meeting of the two electromagnetic fields, which are the two vortices that open or close each energy center, when they're in balance, when we're basically an adaptive complex adaptive system. So basically we're self-regulating, we're also self-regenerating, kind of like the two branches of nervous system. So we have the parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system that regenerates us and regulates us. So same with every single subatomical vibrational field, and you can aggregate it up when they're self-organizing into our chakras. This is the next level of energy fields, when it's in balance, when we're not too open with the chakra or too close with the chakra, when there's homeostasis and harmony and balance, then there's phase cancellation, then it creates a scalar wave, a standing wave, a blocking pattern that allows us to send out the call and response. So our communication with the unified field is really the scalar wave that transmits out of our energy field. And that communication really is not just electromagnetic, it's actually the next layer. So it's all about restoring what's deficient to find the balance of the two opposing forces, whether it's the particle and antiparticle realities, or it's the female and male aspect of ourselves, so that a divine child can be born out of divine masculine and feminine. So the divine child is that scalar wave, standing wave pattern that allows us to call for a particular response from the unified field, which is the divine mother, the original creator, and the resonance between our own scalar wave and the corresponding scalar wave from the unified field. It creates another divine child, that basically opens the heart or opens all the energy center. So basically that column, the pillar of light that my yoga teacher was observing, and all that is a result of every single energy centers creating a scalar wave that vibrates at a particular frequency, and it calls the unified field to respond at that frequency. So when the two are in resonance, it creates another blocking pattern, another standing wave. So that's how a person's energy field will become a portal. So to become a portal guardian, you have an umbilical cord all the way to the source, to the original creator, meaning that your scalar wave is constantly calling for a response, for that beam of light, the pillar of light, to come down. So it's like a twin vortices in constant interaction. And because these are two scalar waves in constant interaction, you create another scalar wave out of it. So that's what makes a person a portal. So the presence of a healer is enough to correct any distortion in other people's energy center or in their tissues or organs or cells. And that's the same kind of mechanism of the stargates that I was talking about. Because some of these stargates, they literally are getting a beam, a specific transmission of a scalar wave at a specific frequency from the source. So basically, when we downgraded from 15th dimension all the way down to our three-dimensional time and space continuum, there was a traumatic event where the 5D Earth, Tara, got split into multiple planets of, like the planets of our solar system. So when we're looking at astrocartography, looking at these planetary lines, so there are aspects of ourselves that are fragmented due to the need to downgrade from, the 5D Earth to the 3D dimensional experience, and to ascend. Yes, we might be able to, do sound healing. We might be able to sing God's language, the tonal or light codes, or do certain dance of life movements. These are all codes. These are all ways to create that call, which is a scalar wave transmission from us to solicit response. But none of them are as powerful as actually experiencing these portals that are encoded with the scalar wave frequency that are that are essential for our complete ascension from the 3D Earth to the 5D Earth. Because when we call and response, we're working with the coherence level of our body and consciousness. But when we go to these stargates, these locations such as Mount Shasta, Shawnee National Forest, Glastonbury, or Abu Jani, Brazil, when we go to these stargates, they are constantly getting the download of the scalar wave frequencies that are essential for a specific DNA strand to be activated for you. Because that frequencies are constantly beaming down. So those locations are different from just you chanting or using specific light languages to have a tiny little transmission of scalar wave, because that we're talking about very different, very, very different level of intensity and coherence. So encountering the right stargates would definitely expedite our healing and ascension journey. So the reason I'm sharing all these personal stories of how I progress through the different harmonic universes and the actual interactions with people and places, because you can be in a cave and you can sing the light language, God's language, to activate yourself, activate your DNAs. But we're here for theater school. We're here to learn through interactions with other people, with places. And the earth is a living being, is a living energetic entity, just like every single human body. And by the way, our body's made out of 70 to 80% of water. So is earth. So there's really that union of humans biofield with the biofield of the earth that need to happen, and that is the reality of higher dimensional living. So some of these energetic beings that do not have a body, they all have planets too, and basically their planets are like one with them. So I think going through the process of activating the portals on earth and allowing these portals to activate you, besides just chanting and doing your own work to activate your own DNA, is critically important for not just the human evolution of consciousness, but also the ascension of the earth.
Wow, and thank you for sharing all that. And
You're so very welcome.
unfortunately, we're at an hour and a half, and so there is so many more questions that I have for you, but unfortunately, we'll have to save them for another episode. So, thank you so much.
You're so very welcome. Thank you for
And
having me.
yes, and hopefully, we'll get you back on to share more and cover some other of your topics that are so equally fascinating.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Have a great night.
Yes, you too.
Thank you.
And to everyone in the audience that was watching, thank you for watching and participating as well. And my hope is everyone has a wonderful night, day, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And blessings to you all. Have a great night, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.